Canaanite religion or Syro-Canaanite religions refers to the myths, cults and ritual practices of people in the Levant. During roughly the first 3 millennia BCE, Canaanite religions were polytheistic and in some cases monolatristic. They were influenced by neighboring cultures, particularly ancient Egyptian and Mesopotamian religious practices. The pantheon was headed by the god El and his consort Asherah, with other significant deities including Baal, Anot, Astarte, and Mo. Canaanite religious practices included animal sacrifice, veneration of the dead, and the worship of deities through shrines and sacred groves. The religion also featured a complex mythology, including stories of divine battles and cycles of death and rebirth. The early Israelites may have leaned towards polytheistic practices that were otherwise common across ancient Semitic religion, as their worship apparently included a variety of Canaanite gods and goddesses, such as El, Asherah, and Baal. In later centuries, El and Yahweh became conflated, and El-linked epithets, such as 𝗖𝗆𝗍𝗶𝗁, came to be applied to Yahweh alone. Some scholars believe that El and Yahweh were always conflated. Characteristics of other deities, such as Asherah and Baal, were also selectively absorbed in conceptions of Yahweh. Over time, the existence of other deities was denied outright, and Yahweh was proclaimed the creator deity and the sole divinity to be worthy of worship. During the Second Temple period, openly speaking the name of Yahweh in public became regarded as a religious taboo, and Jews instead began to substitute other Hebrew words, primarily Adonai, literally my lords. A number of scholars have also drawn the conclusion that infant sacrifice, whether to the underworld deity Molech or to Yahweh himself, was a part of Israelite Judahite religion until the reforms of King Josiah in the late 7th century BCE. Animal sacrifices played a big role in Yahwism, with the subsequent burning and the sprinkling of their blood, a practice described in the Bible as a daily temple ritual for the Jewish people. Christian belief holds that Jesus is Yahweh in human form because 1. He calls himself I am John 8:58, the name of Yahweh. 2. He created everything Colossians 1:16. 3. He forgives sins, which only God can do Mark 5:27. 4. He receives worship Matthew 28:17. 5. He's called God in the flesh, John 1:1-14. According to Christians, Jesus is Yahweh, but in a human body. The Old Testament, Hebrew Bible reveals 𝗧𝗿𝗆, often vocalized with vowels, as Yahweh or Jehovah as the personal name of God, along with certain titles, including El Elyon and El Shaddai. Jah or Yah is an abbreviation of Yahweh, Yahweh, and often sees usage by Christians in the interjection Hallelujah, meaning praise Yah, which is used to give God glory. Yahwism is the name given by modern scholars to the religion of ancient Israel and Judah, an ancient Semitic religion of the Iron Age. Yahwism was essentially polytheistic and had a pantheon, with various gods and goddesses being worshipped by the Israelites. At the head of this pantheon was Yahweh, held in an especially high regard as the two Israelite kingdoms' national god. Some scholars hold that the goddess Asherah was worshipped as Yahweh's consort, though other scholars disagree. Following this duo were second-tier gods and goddesses, such as Baal, Chemosh, Yorick, Mo, and Astarte, each of whom had their own priests and prophets and numbered royalty among their devotees. Yahwism underwent several redevelopments and recontextualizations as the notion of divinities aside from or comparable to Yahweh was gradually degraded by new religious currents and ideas, possibly beginning with the hypothesized United Kingdom of Israel. The Northern Kingdom of Israel and the Southern Kingdom of Judah had a joint religious tradition comprising cultic worship of Yahweh. Later theological changes concerning the evolution of Yahweh's status initially remained largely confined to small groups, only spreading to the population at large during the general political turbulence of the 7th and 6th centuries BCE. By the end of the Babylonian captivity, Yahwism began turning away from polytheism, or, by some accounts, Yahweh-centric monolatry, and transitioned towards monotheism, where Yahweh was proclaimed as the creator deity and the only entity worthy of worship. Following the end of the Babylonian captivity and the subsequent establishment of 𝗖𝗆𝗲𝗃 in the 4th century BCE, Yahwism coalesced into what is known as Second Temple Judaism, from which the modern ethnic religions of Judaism and Samaritanism, as well as the Abrahamic religions of Christianity and Islam, would later emerge. There is a broad consensus among modern scholars that the religion of ancient Israel was polytheistic, involving many gods and goddesses. The supreme god was Yahweh, whose name appears as an element on personal seals from the late 9th to the 6th centuries BCE. Alongside Yahweh was his consort Asherah, replaced by the goddess Anotya, who in the temple of the 5th century Jewish settlement Elephantine in Egypt, and various biblical passages indicate that statues of the goddess were kept in Yahweh's temples in Jerusalem, Bethel, and Samaria. Below Yahweh and Asherah were second-tier gods and goddesses such as Baal, Chemosh, Yorick, Mo, and Astarte, all of whom had their priests and prophets and numbered royalty among their devotees. A goddess called the Queen of Heaven was also worshipped. She was probably a fusion of Astarte and the Mesopotamian goddess Ishtar, although the phrase is possibly a title of Asherah. A third tier may also have existed, made up of specialist deities. And below these again was a fourth and final group of minor divine beings, such as the Malak, the messengers of the higher gods, who in later times became the angels of Christianity, Judaism and Islam, and other heavenly beings, such as cherubim, worship of Baal, and Yahweh coexisted in the early period of Israel's history, but they were considered irreconcilable after the 9th century BCE, following the efforts of King Ahab and his queen Jezebel to elevate Baal to the status of national god, although the cult of Baal did continue for some time. Throughout the Hellenistic period, in the non-Jewish parts of Canaan, Greek religion spread alongside pre-existing Canaanite traditions, rather than replacing them. There were plenty of similarities between both religions, and through a process of syncretism, Canaanite deities were given the names of the Greek equivalents.